Now, I mentioned that Range is not in favor of pursuing any kind of legal action. I mean, that is probably the last option on the table. We don't want that. We want everyone to come back to the table, sit down, and hammer out an agreement and meet in the middle. Again, I bring up what just happened today in North Bethlehem. That is a prime example of where things can end up. Now, in the Business Journal, and this was, what's the date on this? Yesterday. Story in the Business Journal yesterday. Range threatens to pull out of Mount Pleasant Township. And one of your supervisors said, and I quote, "Why do you, a multi-billion-dollar company, need to put that in the form of a letter?" Meaning legal action. "Why don't you just do it?"
Supervisor.
No, I'm not, I don't want to go down that path, but
We do. We vote for those people. We elect them.
you can pass that down.
They work for us.
Now, again, that is a prime example of why, or at least we believe why, we have not been able to make headway. A lot of the relationship we've had with the township has been, for whatever reason, adversarial. We don't want that. That doesn't do us any good. It doesn't do you any good. But that's really kind of what we're up against. Again, we want to meet in the middle. We want to cooperate. We want to do things right. Our model ordinance goes far beyond the existing language, and it goes far beyond the proposed draft that's floating around out there. Hold on one second.
Can I ask a question now?
So, again, and again, I just wanted an opportunity to explain what's going on. We have 3 pads, as you can see in the presentation. Currently we have 3 pads built in this township, meaning they were already graded. We have the access roads in place. When we say a built pad, we mean graded and ready to go. We can move the equipment in. To date, we have not drilled them for obvious reasons. We would like to. We would like to drill a lot more, and I'm sure some of you would like us to drill more, those of you with leases. But we need some cooperation, and we just need to meet in the middle. That's really why we're here.
There ain't no supervisor telling me what I can do on my property.
Thank you, Mary.
If you ever come to chase one off Range off of my property, yeah. You pay the taxes and insurance.
Now, one of the issues we have, with drilling these 3 pads, and this is why it's so imperative that we get something resolved quickly. And right now we're exploring all options, and we're willing to continue exploring all the options. One second. One of the issues is that the permits are going to expire soon, the drilling permits. So we would like to start drilling before the permits expire. So that's a logistical issue. But again, if this whole process is unpredictable, it leaves us in the lurch as far as a solution. With that, Mike? With that, I'm going to take a couple of questions.
Yeah, you act like you dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's.
Can you take the mic over to them?
I live on Washington Avenue. It took me a long time to fix that.
Take the mic over.
After all polls leave.
He's gonna bring you a mic.
Another thing, I received a letter about 6 months ago. Trying to call, have a simple letter, just had a couple questions. I can't get a hold of anybody to call me back. Do you have a number I can call somebody?
I do have a number. As a matter of fact, I have a stack of my business cards on this table. And even, there are people in this room who are not big fans of range, with whom I have dealt personally. And I will return the calls.
I've called about
Yes.
20 times. I got answer machines, left messages, and nobody ever called back.
Take one of my cards. It not only has my desk phone on it, it also has my cell number on it. Is that fair? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to say, I live on Cherry Valley Road, and sometimes I travel on Washington Road. And for years, Washington Road has been a mess. Until recently, I've been traveling on Washington Road. I'm like, this is fabulous. This is the best this road's ever been.
The question was, I had, correct me if I'm wrong, but I had mentioned another township. I had mentioned the operator suing that other township.
Right.
What were they doing wrong, and is Mount Pleasant doing the same thing?
Correct, because you had said that you guys tried to tell them, you don't do that, and they wouldn't return your calls. But is Mount Pleasant trying to do the same thing, and what is it?
I think I'm reluctant to compare township to township like that. What that other township was doing, there was a lot of language in the ordinance that would have been preempted by the state law. A lot. In terms of setbacks and noise requirements. I mean, you name it, and it was in this thing. And that's really why it went that direction. Mount Pleasant was actually, we've been through several iterations of their draft ordinance, the one that's coming up. I guess there's a hearing next week too, next Tuesday. Their initial draft almost resembled that one, but over time it's become more and more reasonable and accommodating, and quite frankly, fallen under where it's supposed to be with regard to the Oil and Gas Act. And like I said, I mean, the latest draft, the latest version of the draft, quite frankly, is not horrible, but it does boil down to those two issues, conditional versus permitted use, and the trailers. Does that answer your question?
It does, yes.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Would you recommend petition, calling the commissioners?
The question was, what can we do to help? Not we. That's really going to be on all of you to develop any kind of a plan of action. I mean, politics is not, it's not our bailiwick. We drill wells.
All your supervisors get that us. You don't need them. We need rain. All these farmers, they work hard all their life. Now they have a little bit of chance to make a few dollars to buy a tractor. Before, now they put air conditions in. Believe me, we need range. Range don't need us.
Yeah, I am a current leaseholder with Range, and I do appreciate the information. But I think we need to keep in mind that this is your side of the story, and I'm not involved with the township whatsoever. I'm sure there's another side of the story that we all need to keep in mind. Frankly, I'm not willing to flush my property values down the toilet and the health of my family for the check that I received.
Hold on, folks, hold on, we got, it's hard to hear here.
People want to know what we can do. We have a township meeting on the 12th, 6 o'clock. Come to the township meeting. Let your supervisors know what you actually feel. Range resources, their drilling, their jobs, they have done in this community has been nothing but A+.
Jim, did you take it upon your responsibility to write them a letter and ask them that they can have the meeting here because that room, I understand.
It's scheduled for here. It's scheduled for here.
I think it is scheduled for here. For those of you who didn't hear that, it was the 12th. And that's a township meeting, that's not a range meeting. Yes, sir.
I'm not from this matter today. Clarify something for me. I'm actually the chairman of the planning commission in Robinson. So clarify for me what the issue is on the trailers that Mount Pleasant is not going in the state. Is it sewage? Is it
Every day somebody
clarify
writes.
what's going on?
Basically, it is,
What's the question?
I'm sorry, the question was, clarify what the actual issue is with the trailers. I guess you want me to be more specific. It has to do with, under the existing township ordinance, not the drilling ordinance in the township, the existing zoning ordinance, okay, the general zoning ordinance. Our trailers do not meet the conforming use definition. It's not a mobile home, yet it's not a construction trailer. Those are the two definitions. Now, going back last September, we were cited for having those trailers on the site. We were issued a citation. We pulled the trailers off the site. We then asked, well, okay, what do we have to do in order to get them back on the site? And we were told, well, go apply for a special exception. So we did, and we were denied 3-0.
Them people do.
And
Oh, I'm mad.
And that recently came out again in one of these media stories is, well, people can apply for a special exception. We've never approved one, but they can go ahead and apply. So, I mean, the issue is the trailers are not allowed on site under the existing zoning ordinance, not the drilling ordinance, the zoning ordinance. But the drilling ordinance, the new draft says, refer to the zoning language. So it's very confusing, but we've explored a number of options. We still are. We would be willing to make accommodations either in terms of, whatever it is, a fee or applying for a permit. Maybe we have a special permit for those trailers. I mean, we're willing to walk that path. Yes, sir.
When you sent out your original model ordinance before they started this second ordinance, was this all included in that model ordinance from Range Resources? To have the trailers and these other issues, were they in that prior?
The man gotta have.
The question is, was this stuff, meaning I guess our concerns, were they included in that model ordinance that we delivered to the township?
Yes.
Yes, they were. They were specifically outlined in the ordinance, in the language.
And they had no problem with that originally?
Well, yeah, they've had a problem with it since we gave it to them.
Prior to all this adjusting of the ordinances, did they have a problem with the trailers being on their front day?
I see what you're saying. No. We've been operating in Mount Pleasant for a number of years. And that was a good question, thanks. We've been operating here for a number of years, and on those sites, we had trailers. There was never an issue with the trailers. They were there for years, including, hold on a second, including the rig hands staying on the sites. About a year ago, well, I take that back, a couple of years ago, there was a minor dust up over them. We took them off the site. We put them back on. No real issues, no big deal. Anyway, going back about last year, this time last year, the trailers became an issue. Why, we don't know. I mean, I can speculate as to why. It was around...
Nothing else to complain about.
But anyway, we have operated in the township with the trailers on site up until very recently. And I don't know why they've suddenly become such a contentious issue with the supervisors. I mean, it seems sudden.
Nothing else to
So I don't know.
complain about. They
Sir.
have to go look for trouble. Range is a business.
Hold on a second.
They know what they're doing. They need a trailer, they need a trailer. Put 5 on my property. A trailer can't hurt nobody.
Hold on, Mary. Hold on.
My God, enough is enough.
He's bringing you a mic.
Stupid excuses. I'm sick of it. I tell you, enough is enough. You stay here all night and tell them why we need a trailer. They know why they need a trailer. They're in business. And the more trouble
There's
you
other people that
give
have questions. Can you take your turn, please?
oh yes, I'm speaking now,
You
please.
did not raise your hand, and other people have.
Too bad.
Go ahead, sir.
I think you said they would issue another ordinance for the trailers in the township. It wouldn't rewrite you another ordinance. The question I have is why? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't they do it?
Why wouldn't they rewrite the ordinance?
Yeah, why wouldn't they? You said under no conditions would they
Right.
rewrite another ordinance. Why?
I don't know.
It's just Russia or something?
I don't know. One of the concerns that they mentioned, or I guess one of the justifications, was that they don't know the people who are on the site. So they didn't want the rig hands or the supervisors really, but they didn't want anybody living on site because they don't know these people. Now my contention is if you have people staying on the site, you're limiting the amount of traffic going back and forth. If you make everybody stay off the site, you're going to have whatever that shift consists of in terms of personnel leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back. And frankly, if it's the whole thing is sort of contradictory. If you're concerned about the character of the people on a given site, why would you force them then to go stay in your town? Why wouldn't you confine them to the site? So you can't have it both ways.
They are mobile homes and they are work trailers. Why would Mount Pleasant supervise and send them to our park to stay when they were evicted from a site, if they're not either? And have no problem with that. It's an everyday thing.
The question was, I hope I get this right, if they're not mobile homes and they're not construction trailers, why would the supervisors then send them to your park once the people are evicted? I don't know.
They don't have nothing else to do.
I don't know. I wish I had a good answer for that.
Hey, I got the answer.
Hold on, Mary.
I'm sorry.
Hold on one second. I'm gonna let.
Hey, Rangers in business. They
Mary? Hold on.
Oh, come on. Oh, every year. Oh, forget it. Oh, they ask the dumbest questions. If the range ain't killing nobody, hurting nobody, why all this confusion over a trailer?
Hi, I'm Bob Haynes. I live on Washington Avenue also. We've had lots of talks. You know Debbie and I are in favor of the industry. The gas industry is a great thing for not only Mount Pleasant Township, but the entire nation. This is a good thing. Two things disturb me this evening. Number one, I've seen copies of 2 letters that have gone out this week that say 180 degrees opposite things. I don't understand that. Which one am I to believe? Number two, it disturbs me that there's a letter also that you've more or less said to the township, here's the ordinance. If you accept our ordinance the way it is, we'll paint the supervisors with a paintbrush that makes them nice. If, on the other hand, you don't accept this ordinance, we're going to aid and assist and educate the township residents on how to personally sue the supervisors. Is that so you don't get in a lawsuit with the supervisors, but the township residents would? That disturbs me that you would resort to somewhat extortionism to get what you want.
I think, yeah, that's a bit strong to use that word. What you're referring to are the minutes from a meeting that we had with some of the township officials, not all of them. Those minutes were not typed up by us. They were not distributed by us.
Well, did you say it or not?
No, I did not say that we
Well,
were
not
going...
you, but Range. We've got to ask the questions properly. Did anyone from Range even insinuate that they would do that?
No, I did not instruct it. I was at the meeting, Bob. Okay, that was me. All right, I was the one sitting there. I did not tell them we will instruct people on how to sue the township. What we said was there are legal options. Hold on one second.
Tim, I just wanted to point out that you said one of our sticking points is traditional use zoning, conditional use zoning. And I just want to make it clear that every other town, not every other, most townships surrounding us do have zoning conditional use. It's not just us. So how are you gonna handle that?
How am I going to handle what?
Well, how would Range handle that? If we are conditional use, that's what we would like to do. And many of the surrounding townships in Washington County are the same. So we are not the only ones that are asking for that. It's in place in many of the surrounding townships, including Robinson, I know. I tell the gentleman here from Robinson.
Peters also.
And many others. So it's not, I don't want you to vilify us and for everyone here to think that.
Oh, no, and that's certainly not our intent. Certainly not our intent. I mean, if it comes down to conditional use, and that's the absolute way it has to be, obviously we would comply. We're doing it in a number of other townships, okay? And miraculously, we're drilling wells in a host of other townships. This is the only place we have these kinds of problems, right here in Mount Pleasant. This is it. Everywhere else, we have cooperative relationships, we have good rapport with people, we've worked with them on their ordinances, and in some cases, we have fully accepted whatever they put in front of us and said, okay, well, that's fine, we'll do it your way because it's reasonable. It allows us to operate while it still offers the protections that all of you, the residents, want built into there.
You know what I'd rather do? I'd tell them, go overseas and get your gas like we're getting our gasoline. We have gasoline here. No, we got to...
You're absolutely right. Let me get this lady's question. Yes, ma'am.
I'm from Weaverstown, I just want to say thank you, Ray, for using what I'm bringing from. But I'd also like to say, don't the people have to be drug and alcohol and criminally background checked to be on site for a range? I know we are. That's awesome.
Did you?
Hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
Repeat your question.
Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, do people have to be drug and alcohol tested to work on the sites? Yes, they do.
Criminal background.
Criminal background checks as well. Sorry.
How about sexual predators?
Go ahead.
It seems like all the townships are fighting among themselves, and this should be a state ordinance instead of what we're getting to there. Where are we going in that aspect to change the laws from the state to take care of the whole thing instead of every one of the townships fighting over what we're doing? Is that not the main concern we should be worried about?
Well, I think you could apply that across the board to many things in Pennsylvania. That has been discussed in Harrisburg. Obviously, that's not my bailiwick. I'm not a state level guy. The question was instead of township by township regulation, or we're looking at it on a local level, shouldn't the concern be tackling this statewide and sort of making a blanket regulatory environment? Obviously, that would be easier. And this goes really to the heart of one of the matters is we are after consistency in what we do. We would like a level playing field. It's not that we want the rules to go our way. It's not that we want everything to tilt toward range. We just want to know what the rules are. And right now, township to township, they change. It's a different playbook no matter where we go. That makes it very difficult for any business. That makes it very difficult for any business to plan, especially ours, considering the amount of equipment and the logistics. So we just want some consistency in the law. So, yes.
Explain that the equivalent of temporary.
The statement of the question was explain that the trailers are temporary. All of the equipment on these sites are temporary. The trailers, the drilling rig, the trucks, the generators. Once those wells are drilled, all of that equipment goes away. Sorry.
I understand that Representative White had a meeting at Cannon Mac inviting all the townships around that they could do a model ordinance. And I stopped down in his office today and the girls told me and Mount Pleasant was there. The only two people that responded to that was Cecil Township and McDonald Borough.
The statement was, recently Representative White had a meeting at Cannon Mac about the industry. The only two townships that responded were Cecil and McDonald. Actually, what he was proposing, it wasn't ordinance related. What he wants to do is create another, I guess, level of inspection or oversight.
I'm here from Representative White's office. I'll speak to that if that's okay.
Thank you.
I just want to say hi to Representative White, President of the Legislation, who's here right now. Couldn't be here, unfortunately. We are trying to create a co-op, if you will, for municipal officials, municipalities in the district, much like many landowners have a co-op, much like the industry has a co-op. And I just want to say we simply want to provide a forum for municipal officials to get together, to brainstorm, to talk about shared services, shared issues they're having. Right now, as Jim said, 2 municipalities have contacted us to say they would be involved.
Okay, well, I would encourage everybody to track you down after this.
I was going to say, so if you have any questions about that,
Right.
Please contact Representative White's office. I'll be lingering around the place here afterwards, and be happy to talk to you about that.
Thanks, Nick.
It seems to me that the big difference between range and the township supervisor's version of ordinances, you want permitted use, they want conditional use. You say you want to abide by all the requirements, but as defined in permitted use. Supervisors are concerned that not every site is created equal, and there may be special circumstances that arise at a site that can only be addressed then through conditional use condition. Question is, there seems to be some room for compromise there. Your proposed ordinance doesn't have any language to go above and beyond the prescribed requirements should you encounter a site that has circumstances that need special attention.
Such as what?
The school.
A school,
They're not stupid. They ain't gonna put one
an
by
exceptional quality stream, a higher quality stream that goes through the site that might need extra protection. Aquifers that may be at different levels than you're concerned. Seismic activity that might disrupt the grouting. You know, there's a lot of things. Compressor stations, proximity of homes, noise, lights. These things look like, Cape Canaveral.
There are setbacks.
The question is, what sort of compromise could you propose that says, if there are conditions that require us to go above and beyond the permitted use requirements, we will meet them?
The question is, what compromise would we make if we were asked to go above and beyond the permitted use?
Yes.
Okay. Our ordinance addresses probably 99% of that. That other 1%, range has a good reputation, obviously not here, but everywhere else, of cooperating with townships on those issues. We have built into our ordinance, again, we've expanded setbacks voluntarily. When it comes to water sources like streams and rivers, we are required by the DEP to submit environmental plans. So we have to account for those before we start operations. And again, with permitted use, if the conditions existed ahead of time, as opposed to popping up with every hearing, we can account for them, we can meet those requirements before we do anything. I mean, that makes sense to me, to have a list of things we have to do before we start.
That's a problem.
So, does that answer your question?
Partially.
Okay. See me after this. Maybe we can talk in more detail. I'm going to take one more. Okay.
Jim, I have an objection. You call these things shacks. We manufacture the shacks for you, and there's nothing like a trailer. These are absolutely heavy duty. They could not possibly have wheels under them. They're 50 feet long. They weigh 35,000 pounds when we're done with them. They have everything imaginable for a man to live in and to operate the center. And to have an imagination that they're a trailer, range doesn't permit us to make a trailer these things at command center.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Ray.
15 till, yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Back in January, there was a meeting here, the weather was miserable, and it was pretty clear how people felt at that meeting. I went to the following supervisors meeting, and they assured everybody that went to the meeting that, yeah, we're going to sit down, communicate with Range Resources. Did that happen?
The question was, there was a meeting here in January, and the supervisors communicated that they were going to sit down with our company
Hash things out.
and have further discussions. Yes, we had one meeting, one subsequent meeting after that. That was the one where these minutes were generated. That was the meeting we were talking about.
I'd like to answer this young lady's question about what you can do with supervisors like that. The only thing you can do is get out and vote and get them out of office.
Hey, Range is in business. They know what they're doing. They know where to put a trailer. They know not to go by a school. What the heck is this all about?
Maybe we'll take one. Let me take one more, and then go ahead. Then.
When my wells were drilled was when trailers were all on the site. I had no problems whatsoever with the men that were there. In fact, I enjoyed talking with them.
Praise the Lord.
Go ahead.
How many people in this room have a lease of Range?
Yeah, I got 5 of them.
I'm not sure I'll take that. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Matt. We have a little bit more time. Go ahead.
I'm really not on either side of this, but, you say things keep popping up, that you have to meet, but when Range came into this community however many years ago, you knew that those ordinances were in place. Why now have these issues became such an issue for Range?
Okay, the question was, when we came here originally into the town, the ordinances existed. We knew that, so why are these an issue now? Back then, when we came in, it wasn't an issue because the existing language is permitted use. And the trailers, as I said, we operated for years with no issues with the trailers on site. I mean, really. And like every other township around here, Mount Pleasant has recognized that horizontal drilling keeps advancing and it goes faster, and there's different technology involved and different volumes, and so they have to address language that they felt was outdated. So they're looking at rewriting the ordinance. Now, that's why it's an issue now, is because they're examining it and they want to change it. Now, wait a second. The problem with that is, and let me point out the obvious to everybody in the room, the only people who really have the advantage when this kind of stuff happens, this divisiveness between us and you and the supervisors and whoever else, the only people who really benefit are attorneys. And people laugh, but those are the people that are really making out like bandits, and they're laughing all the way to the bank on this whole thing. So, did you have and
We pay.
That's a good point. That's a good point. When these ordinances are reviewed, when they're rewritten, when challenges like the other township with the other operator happen, all of you are the ones footing the bill. You're paying for it. What was the other part of your question? We've operated under the conditions up until now, so why are we,
Why do you need to now have these ordinances changed and these two requirements?
why do we need the ordinances changed now? Well, again, if our ordinance actually goes far beyond what exists with the current language, because we recognize that there are things that have cropped up over the years that are of concern to everyone. So we've built that into our version, our model ordinance, to address them. I know it doesn't make sense. It's counter to business, but we actually are building in much stronger regulations than those under which we currently operate. The only bone of contention really is conditional versus permitted and the trailers. Everything else, we go far beyond what's required either in the township or even by the state. And we're doing that voluntarily. And we're doing that because we want to set the bar high. We want this township to have the strongest, the best, the most complete ordinance in the Commonwealth for drilling. We want that here, but it can't happen if we keep butting heads. That's what we want.
You're lucky there, you're staying here, I'd be gone. I wouldn't be putting up with a trailer.
Hold on, Mary. Hold on.
In reality, a supervisor, when we go to, what's the term you're using for conditional permit, isn't that going to require more of their time to go over all these different conditions that they're going to look at?
The question is,
No, just a little bit more. Okay. And if it does, these township commissioners are paid a flat salary. Why would they want to go through all this extra hassle of spending that much more time to do this?
the question is, if we go through the conditional use process, one, won't that require more time on the part of the supervisors? And I would remind you, the zoning and planning folks as well. And number two, why would they want to do it? Back to one of the points I made a couple minutes ago, I don't think they do. I think it's the attorneys.
Right.
So, I mean, it doesn't, I guess it doesn't really make sense to waste that amount of time. It would be easier to have a permitted use in place like we currently have, front load all the conditions, we can meet them, and then move on from there.
That's the truth.
Hold on, he was holding, 1 second. We're going to do two more questions. Go ahead.
Did I hear you correctly that if you don't get some accommodation, that you would not be able to drill the wells at the Ohio Valley Bible Camp?
The question is, if we don't get some accommodation, is it true that we can't drill the wells at the Ohio Valley Bible Camp? It is our contention that we need those supervisors on the site, yes.
Okay, I would just like to make a comment then. A gentleman over here said he could forego the dollars that he might get. I can tell you that our camp, it exists on gifts from people, from churches. We bring in kids who are behind in math and reading, and in 1 week we can add 1 year to the grade level of a child who's behind, and it makes a difference for their life. And if we don't get the money from these wells, we are going to have to stop. We will not be able to continue. So it's not money in our pockets, it's kids who have a chance in life, and they're going to be affected by this.
I have kind of like two comments and then one kind of question. One, I'm a business person. I am not from Washington County, but I do have interest in here. I have a partial lease. Long story. One, as a business person, I enter into any contract, I want to know what's going to happen. Whether it be this much or this much. Two, you are a growing, technology advancing business, just like the coal industry was. They've advanced now to the long wall and all this other stuff. You're doing that. People have to be patient a little bit till you get your growing pain down. Okay? And it will take a little bit of time. As far as the trailers, okay? I know how they're built, okay? They are built like mini little tanks almost, okay? They far surpass any mobile home thing going on now, and I'm sure, I don't live in this county, but I know every county has trailer parks that don't meet any specs. And are you being discriminated against because you are a business with a higher level, but they're only temporary, and you're stuck in the middle because you are growing?
Right. Again, to address your points, if I can sort of, I guess, aggregate them and wrap them up. The trailers, you mentioned that they're built like mini tanks. They do have high standards for those. When we drill wells, those big rigs, whatever equipment is with that big rig goes with it site to site to site, as do the crews. So it's almost it's akin, to a battleship. I mean, wherever that battleship goes, those guys on that ship are with it. It's the same thing with the drilling equipment. So those trailers need to endure. I mean, they need to be built pretty solid. As far as the growing pains go, with every well we drill, every single well, not pad, but every individual well, we get better at it. We get more efficient, and we certainly get safer. We learn things about our industry and our operations, and we learn better ways of doing things. And again, that's where this ordinance goes. This ordinance zeroes in on those core issues when we're operating. So we are refining, we are getting better. I mean, we are light years ahead of where we were a year ago, and even further than we were 2 years ago. And where we were 10 years ago is almost unrecognizable. We are that far down the road, and it's going to keep getting better and more refined and safer. You've had your hand up for about an hour.
I just have something really quick to say. It's just that I know it's easy to trash the supervisor. They are just residents of this community. Imagine being in their role. They didn't know a thing about this when it was thrust upon them, and they are just trying to make the best decision to protect all of us who live here. That's all I want to say.
My name is Nick Pascuzzi. I'm one of the owners of New Dominion Construction. We operate a business out of Mount Pleasant Township. We've been very fortunate. We're an earth moving company. Range has provided a lot of work to my company and my employees, and for that we're very thankful. I too was at the meeting here several months ago, and during the meeting there were residents that were complaining about, for example, down in the Nancy Stewart area, there was compressor stations that were built, there was access roads, there was noise, and whether this is true or not, their contention was that this activity, the construction, had occurred breaking current ordinances. And secondly, just recently, the gentleman that operates the Hickory Resident website, there was a link on there where it showed vehicles using many of the lighter roads in town that have 10-ton weight limit sign. You can see the vehicle, you can see the sign. I believe I'm accurate to tell you that Range has a bond on all township roads. If we're breaking current ordinances, and if vehicles are using roads that should be using the road, why aren't we enforcing the ordinances we have now? And where is our police force? If somebody is using the road, somebody that has no business with Range Resources, is going down the road, doesn't have a copy of the bond or the permit to access that road, where is our current police force writing tickets, generating revenue for this township? Why don't we enforce the ordinances we have now? Why would we write new ones to sit back and bicker over and not enforce?
For those of you who couldn't hear, Mr. Pascuzzi asked the question, if the township is not enforcing the current ordinances or the ones on the book, why spend time enacting new ones? And you pointed specifically to traffic issues, trucks, certain companies not having bonds on the road. We have for a long time cooperated with the police here in Mount Pleasant in terms of enforcement of traffic regulations. I mean, we've had radar cars out there, we've put signs up. we've helped out with traffic enforcement. You know, and I'd like to think that we stand head and shoulders above everybody else in terms of lending a hand. So.
Question.
All right. If you have no more questions?
Yeah, on the bond that you put up for the roads, does that cover all the subcontractors that work for you?
It does. It does. The question was, do the bonds cover the subcontractors? It does. I'm going to end the meeting now. If you have additional questions, please feel free to see us up here, and thank you all very much for attending.
Sorry. I shut it off.
Oh, okay.
Hi, neighbor.
No, I mean, we already signed the